everyone. Welcome to Inclusion Influencers. I'm Dave Barton, the Executive Director of the National Alliance for Accessible Golf, and we're thrilled today to have Bryan Rourke, master fitter with Ping and doing some amazing things in the adaptive golf world, and we're looking forward to having a conversation with him. Bryan, how are you this morning?
I'm well. Yeah, excited to be on here. Excited to talk with you and just talk about adaptive golf.
Sounds great. Well, I've got a few questions for you today, not too many, but let's get to something in a hurry to start off the show here. You're at Orlando last week, PGA show. I walked past you many times. You were very, very, very busy person on the tee box. How'd that go for you? Did you, have any adaptive athletes popping by to check in with you? What went on the range there? Because I know you were nonstop for several days.
Yeah, it's a busy week. It's a fun week. Get to see some familiar faces, a lot of new faces as well. But yeah, it's a busy day. I mean, showing off. We had a new product launch this year, so that definitely brings in a lot more people as well. But yeah, so many adaptive golfers come by. It's really cool to see. More people that are aware of what I do in the adaptive space, but or others that aren't really sure and they see a 66-inch driver shaft and like, oh, what's this all about? So it's really cool to kind of talk about what I do and see a lot of people. But yeah, it's a grind. That the 4 days and the outdoor day this year was rainy and cold. So felt like I was back home in Michigan and definitely not in Florida or Arizona. But you get through it and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was definitely in my recent years at the PGA show. This week by far takes the cake as one of the worst weather weeks in a while. I mean, it was usually get a
Yeah.
day or two, and those of us that might try to sneak out once during the week to maybe get around to golfing
Right.
in, it was pretty good. I live in Charleston, and we got 4 inches of snow in Charleston, South Carolina. So what a mess it was.
Yeah.
But it was nice to have that amazing indoor area that the PGA sets up there to do their thing. So, well, really good. Well, before we, get too deep, I like to kind of start at the beginning. Obviously you mentioned Michigan, so you're very familiar with snow and cold weather. That might have something to do with the fact that you now live in Arizona. But I know you migrated that way in the 2017 to 18 timeframe, and
Yeah.
lots of caddying in your past, some softball coaching. I'd love to hear a little bit about that and how you ended up where you are, and especially your LPGA caddying experience, because that looked like that might have been an Arizona connection. I don't know, but let's talk about that
Yeah.
and some adaptive golf.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of started like you said with being in Michigan, went to school at Michigan State, and then uh, worked with their softball team. Started coaching women's college softball in Michigan, and the nice thing is the summers are off, usually recruiting, um, and really on a whim. I grew up caddying at a country club, and then on a whim one summer, my dad loves to volunteer at professional events in Michigan, I think just to kind of get some of the cool swag, but they needed caddies for one of the pro-am events. And my dad's like, oh, my son caddies. So I went in the pro shop and they're like, hey, one of the rookies needs a caddy. And I'm like, rookies? They're like, yeah, one of the LPGA players. I'm like, sure, I'll do it. So I met nice girl, Jenny Coleman. And so I caddied for her just kind of in the Midwest. As she needed it, she new into playing. And then um, one tournament in Michigan, I ended up meeting my now wife, who is playing professionally, and she's from California. So we dated to distance for a year. She played competitively, and I moved to Arizona. She moved a couple months later, and I started working. I was going to do my PGA, working at a golf course, and ended up opening. There's a job opening at Ping, and I've always loved their product, loved their professionals. And so I applied, got a job, and kind of started over in customer service, learning everything first. But I was hired to be a fitting specialist, and eventually made that transition, and then graduated over to my adaptive side now.
Excellent. My only playing experience with an LPGA player, or potential LPGA player, was many years ago when I was stationed in San Diego. Uh, in the Navy, the Futures Tour came through, is what
Yeah,
they used to call it, I believe. and they had one of those pro-ams, and a buddy of mine got us signed up. And I'm sad I don't remember the young lady's name. It was so long ago.
Yeah,
And I don't think she totally made it on tour, but was quite a fantastic golfer. But I'll tell you, it was a scramble format, and or better ball format. And um we were all hitting the ball off the tee just great. We're all pretty good golfers, and certainly we were past her, near her on the tee, because
yeah,
even back then, the women's game has advanced so much with length and skill. It's just amazing. But I can
absolutely.
tell you that we used 95% of her shots into the green, no matter what distance we were hitting into the green from, or no matter what club we had. I
Yeah,
might have had a 7 iron in my hand. She might have had a 5 iron
yeah,
or a hybrid or whatever, and she was constantly getting inside our shot. So just some amazing golf there. But yeah, that's my only connection, and sends clear messages to me that I need to work a lot harder on my game. Quite honestly.
yeah.
Well, Ping's been a leader in the golf industry for many years in their support of adaptive golf. I was exposed to them in the 2008 timeframe when I was working with Sloop Military Golf Association in the Maryland area, and one of the byproducts of the veterans that were completing their program, and these were post 9/11 combat wounded veterans, very specific
Yeah,
organization at the time, was that they were, presented with a custom fitted, Ping bag and golf clubs at the completion of the event. So Ping's been doing this for a while, which is really noteworthy. When you arrived at Ping, what were your early days like, and how quickly did you kind of migrate over into the adaptive golf space?
yeah. I mean, early on, it was a lot of education on the history of Ping, history of the family, the Solheim family, um, and kind of as you learn that, you kind of realize why you see people that are here for 40 and 45 years. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of learning about the company, and then we kind of got into the logistics of how to work in our internal software and things like that. And then you hop on the phones, and you learn how to talk to people about golf clubs and how to you know place orders really. And then I migrated over to that fitting side after about a year or so, kind of getting my feet wet.
Yeah, that's interesting how they bring you in like that and kind of get you really brought into the culture of the organization, which certainly,
Absolutely.
for the golfers that are trying to go to golf courses, I mean, that works in a lot of places. The
Yeah,
environment that really embrace and bring the golfers in and say, listen, we're a welcoming facility. Ping is listen, we're a welcoming organization. We really want you to feel like you're a part of what we're doing here, is a
yeah.
really cool outlook. Do you have any thoughts on what might have driven Ping into, taking such a direct leadership role in the importance of adaptive golf, and especially on the fitting side?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the easiest way to say it really is, the Solheim family, their commitment to people, commitment to helping people. And I think, obviously started with Karsten and Luis and has, migrated through generations. But, just I was saying about bringing people into the culture here with employees, what our goal and what Karsten's goal initially was to help people play their best golf. So even out here, we don't charge for our fittings. We offer free fittings because of how much we believe in that process. And whether that's your, able-bodied golfer, adaptive golfer, new golfer, whomever it is, I think, Ping and the Solheims are committed to helping every golfer. And that's really what it was. I mean, I'm fortunate to be in the position I am now, but you alluded to Ping's been doing this for, a really, really long time. And it's just what we do. We fit people, we build custom golf clubs, and um, I think that's why it makes it so easy for Ping to excel in the space, because we don't view it as really different than what we do every day, and that's what makes it really cool and exciting.
That is a fantastic outlook in it, and I say that as when we, the word inclusion gets tossed around a lot, and and it
Yeah,
should for some reason, but in the end, to your point, and what we talk about a lot is that these golfers that might have a different way of hitting the golf ball. They've got different abilities
Yeah,
than you and I do. In the end, they all want the same thing that we want, which is to learn to play golf and to play golf,
yeah,
and then really as importantly is that social interaction, and being part of what's going on. And I think that, all golfers is a word we use a lot because it's not a us and them. It's just, it might feel like a different group. But look, I'm
mhm,
64. I'm in a different group. But in the end, we all fit into that all golfers category. And I think that's a great approach. And they're certainly, showing a lot of other organizations around the country in this space that make clubs and do fitting that, certainly are trending in the right direction, but they show what's possible and what's important because it takes creativity in some situations to fit anyway. But it certainly takes a little bit of a unique approach and different creativity when you've really got to rethink something beyond just the shaft and the
yeah,
loft and lie angle. Where's it going to go? How's it going to fit
yeah,
the golfer, much less in their hands if they might not even have hands. So really good stuff. And I got to see some of that in action. Of course, I've certainly taught a little bit of that golf in my day, but I certainly had a great invitation before Thanksgiving of the past year to go visit with Tim Wilkes and PGA Tour Superstore. And of course, you were there that week, so we got to see each other again. And the PGA Superstore has just really launched a fantastic program in association with UN Ping to train their associates around the country in their 70 plus stores now. I believe they're moving towards 100 stores. So I think it's just really really cool, and it's going to be a super good entry point for so many golfers who like to go shop for golf balls and go to the store, just like to go to PGA Superstore. Might be winter, might not be a great time to go out and find a place on the range to hit golf balls. So I think those organizations around the country is going to be fantastic. So tell me a little bit about, how you got involved with them. Not looking for the secret sauce, corporate intel, none of that
yeah,
stuff. That's not my business. But I think obviously it makes sense to me why Ping is there right now and leading the way.
yeah.
And because I think it's a game changer, and where people can learn to play golf.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when I kind of came into my role full time, Tim Wilkes was a name that a lot of people knew of, and Dave Winter and what he does. But Tim was one that I'd heard the name, and I was like, okay, I probably need to talk to this person, learn a little bit more about his involvement, what he does. And it was pretty quick. I mean, you can see Tim as an adaptive golfer himself, his passion for people as well, and he's hungry to help everyone around him and make them better. Um, but the other side for me on the pink side is we had some, adaptive fitting locations, and but we weren't really sure, what was going on. And the more I talked with Tim, I could see, PJ Superstore, they really wanted to get invested and creating accessibility. Right at the end of the day, that's what I try and do as well. Is as much as I'd love to be everywhere all at once or be able to fly anywhere at the drop of a hat, part of my role is making adaptive fitting accessible to all of our golfers that want to play ping products. So it's nice to have different accounts across the country and a lot of the superstores as well. With them kind of diving into this initiative and having a fitter in each of their stores trained on adaptive fitting and having the components there. It's really exciting to see because from my perspective, that means adaptive golf is growing, and that makes me really happy and really excited that other companies and organizations are really seeing the growth and the tidal wave of adaptive golf and investing in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I come out of a green grass environment, working at golf clubs and managing, properties as my second career, working the range and stuff like that. And there's a lot of amazing pros out there, fitters working at green grass facilities or in standalone studios, wherever that may be, that are, doing these things. But the reality is there are still a lot of gaps in access to this kind of fitting from an
Yeah,
availability standpoint because golf courses can be very well intentioned in a lot of areas. They just might not be there yet. They might not have somebody on staff or at their facility that is really educated up on this type of custom fitting, they could be an outstanding fitter. But it is a additional skill set to really fit an
Yeah,
adaptive golfer who needs or is using prosthetics or things like this. It's definitely a different skill set. So I think it's when I said game changer before, it's just going to be great that people will know definitively if they go to a PGA Tour Superstore, they're gonna find somebody there that can do adaptive golf fitting, and that's a win.
yeah,
That's a win for the adaptive golf community, and I hope if anything, it just will continue to inspire more golf instructors, green grass facilities to understand the importance of it, so that can become a little more
yeah.
proliferated around the country. I think that's what we all want in the big scheme of things, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you kind of hit on it. To me, I think, any good fitter can be a really good adaptive fitter as well. And that's a lot of what I do is, when I work or, am teaching, educating other fitters and even our ping staff here, it's really showing them how to use the tools in their toolbox in a different way. You mentioned thinking about building things a different way or what that might look like, and it's the education piece, getting them exposed to adaptive golfers, and then getting them comfortable with, someone walks in with no arms, you're like, oh, actually, I know how to build a golf club for them pretty easily. It's just getting them comfortable in those situations, and again, making it accessible. If adaptive golfers know that they can go to a store or their home course, and someone is either trained on adaptive fitting or know that Bryan Rourke at Ping exists and he's able to help us, that's also a win for us. Is the accessibility, and people know that you and I are out here, and the other members of our community are out here to help. It's just continuing that growth, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah, I agree, and very well said. What can you share? Obviously, it's public information this program is going
Yeah,
on, but
yeah, yeah,
what can you share about kind of some of the key points of the program? Obviously, the associates do a little homework ahead of time, or they're going to start doing a little bit ahead of time. They
yeah.
get in person, and then they get some. So tell me a little bit about kind of what you key on, why you've got them in front of you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when you have a fitter or associate in front of you, a lot of it is the education on, how to fit, but also, the types of golfers they're going to be experiencing or working with, and the varying abilities of what some people can't do. And then also from that medical side as well, what that can look like. So as we mentioned, Superstore has invested quite a bit. They have two physical therapists that are kind of in the area that are invested in adaptive golf as well. So they've come in to kind of explain what each of the medical conditions can look like, how that could affect a golf swing, what to look out for, what could be safe in an environment. An example, like someone maybe with PTSD, right? You don't really notice anything wrong with them, but like they might have PTSD, and we're blowing grips off a club, and that makes a loud sound, right? That can be something to where, hey, we're gonna have this golfer in for you know 10 to 12. We're not gonna be pulling grips for those 2 hours. Um, just little things to be aware of that we don't think about in our everyday life, and educating them on that, and then jumping into the fitting side, educating them on how I go through an adaptive fitting process, what that looks like with various types of golfers, and then the equipment side. It's really cool as a club manufacturer. I love surrounding myself with people smarter than me. Luckily, we have a lot of good engineers around here, that we're able to build some really cool configurations, and really I learned from the associates as well. I mean, they're doing a lot of fittings each day, and what components could be useful for them in their stores to provide these fittings. It might be something I haven't thought of yet either. So it's really cool to have a dialogue, and then usually the last day or two we'll bring in some adaptive golfers and put them to the test, kind of let them roam free and see what they've learned. um, I'm around, Tim's around. We have other, people around to help out if needed, but we really just try to expose them to, the adaptive golf world, and get their feet wet before, they head back to their stores.
Yeah, outstanding. So this here's kind of one add-on question to that,
Yeah.
and it wasn't on the cheat sheet I gave you ahead of time. So, but I'm not setting you up for failure. I assure you. You what was really in your experience, kind of the most unique or maybe the most challenging fitting experience you've kind of come across, I guess. Not to put you on the spot, not looking for a name,
Yeah.
but
No.
because there has to be one or two out there. You're like, okay, this is a really good challenge right here, and how are we going to solve this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. One unique one, um, was I received an email from an airline pilot that flew planes with her feet. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. She's like, I went to an event at it was at Top Golf actually. And she's like, I couldn't participate. I'm like, okay, we can build golf clubs. That's no problem. And so the more we talked, I learned that she is a double arm amputee, but there was no residual arm either. So usually in that situation, I could tuck something under a residual arm, and we build a really long club, and but there was nothing there to secure a club to. So I thought, okay, how are we going to do this? And so I asked her, I was like, what activities do you have, or more of, hey, show up and show me what you can do. Um, and luckily, kind of my initial thought was kind of what she was thinking as well. She works a lot with her feet. She flew the plane with her feet. She, does kind of taekwondo and wields a sword with her feet. And so that's, what we did. And we ended up making kind of like a 3D printed belt buckle that we could secure a golf club to. And she ended up putting the golf club between her, I would call her big toe and index toe, and just kind of did a kicking motion. She hit a driver and a putter, made like a 25-foot putt, which was really, really cool. Um, but I think a big thing too in the adaptive space is understanding who the golfer is. So for her, it was, I would call her a range warrior. She wanted to be able to participate at Top Golf. She wanted to be able to go to the range and chip and putt with her husband. I've seen some of those as well, seated golfers, in a wheelchair, that they just want to go with their kids to the range. So they don't need a specialty cart or anything like that. They don't need a full set of clubs. It's, what their goal is. And I know you've seen the competitive space as well. It's just understanding who I'm fitting in that in instance. So for her, it was, hey, let's build up 2, 3 clubs, and yeah, she swung with her feet. It was a really cool one. Ball's not going super far, but it made golf accessible and an option for her. So that was one that was pretty unique, and I was pretty excited. I came up with the idea, even though I was surrounded by engineers.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. Of all the unique fitting scenarios that I thought you might come up with, that one did not come into
Yeah,
my mind. So,
yeah,
and certainly what I love about that story is that um, uh, it gives a whole new meaning and a positive spin to a foot wedge, right?
yeah,
Because
for sure, right?
it's like,
Absolutely,
hey, you can't let me not use my foot wedge.
right,
We're
absolutely,
gonna have a fight on our hands, right? kind of a deal. No, that's a
for
fantastic
sure.
story. I'd love to meet that person one day just to
Yeah,
talk about see that in action. But so obviously the space we're in, can have a lot of it's a lot of hard work, and
yeah,
there's some intangible benefits there. And I think, without saying the obvious, I mean it's a rewarding thing to help any golfer learn to play. Number one, if you're helping a golfer learn to
absolutely.
play, certainly with these athletes, that they see what is possible now. So for you, do you have a story that kind of stands out with you, that maybe one of your, not that they're not all rewarding experiences, but one where you really like, wow, this one felt really good. Obviously, the story with the woman that's playing golf with her feet is near the top
Yeah.
of that list, I'm pretty sure. But what else might you add on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, one story that I have, and it was truly before I even got my position. The USDJ was hosting their tournament here in Arizona at Longbow Golf Club, and I was just in my fitting position, and I volunteered to go. and all these various types of adaptive golfers show up. And if you've ever been to an adaptive tournament, you kind of know it's a full spectrum of who's there and their abilities. And really, it came from a conversation I had with a gentleman, JC, and uh big guy, looked like he'd be an Alabama football coach, and come to find out he was an Alabama high school football coach. And so,
Okay,
but
very
he,
good.
kind of walking, stumbling along, and had a cane with him. And we just got to talking, really, honestly, kind of almost soft spoken. And he told me a story. He's like, I thought I was the who. I was football coach in the state of Alabama. I thought I was a pretty big deal, and said got in a car accident. He rolled his Suburban. He went out the window, or the sunroof. Sorry, he went out the sunroof, and his car ended up landing across his body. So,
Mm.
half of his body is under his car, and he said, I'm just lucky to be here. And I looked at him, trying not to cry, honestly, and I'm like, well, I'm happy you are. In that story, is just one, and it may seem extreme, but it was one story that kind of resonated with me. With I'm lucky to do what I do, but all these people are just happy to be playing golf. Some traveled across the country to play golf, and it can be that simple as well. We get frustrated in our daily lives, and I'm just blessed to do what I do thanks to the Solheim family. But that conversation really stuck with me, and really made me hungry for the current position I have, honestly. And Ping fortunately created that position. But um, it's hearing stuff like that, and you said rewarding already, that makes me want to be really good at what I do, because I want everyone to have access to golf. I want everyone to play good golf as well, to the best of their specific ability. But that, I mean, it wasn't even really a fitting story. It ended up kind of fitting him. But what was really cool is 2 years later at the USDGA event in Florida, I saw his name on the tee sheet, and I walked up to him on the tee box and I said, "You may or may not remember me, but you told me your story, and I'm in the position I am now. And I'd like to think part of that is because of you." And it was just a cool moment to share with him, kind of a full circle moment. And uh, to me, that was one really special one.
Yeah, that's great. It's just it's so true. No one ever really knows what impact they might have on someone on just a happenstance meeting or a driver
Yeah.
or something like that. So, really, really good story. So, what's on the horizon for Bryan Rourke in 2025? Obviously, you got your hands full doing a lot of great things. Obviously, the superstores, you
Yeah.
travel a lot. I know that. Lots of adaptive golf. But it's kind of, what's your year look like, generally speaking, not day by day, but overall, kind of
Yeah.
what are you really looking forward to this year beyond kind of the norm?
Yeah, I'm excited for this year, as you mentioned, kind of superstore, adding quite a bit of fitters. I try and go to as many tournaments as I can. Not feasible to get to all of them, but I'm really excited to kind of see the growth again of adaptive golf. USGA adding qualifiers in last year, seeing that added in again this year. I'm always excited to go to any tournament and just see some familiar faces. Um, One big thing for me is growing the accessibility again. So I'm hoping that I'm able to accomplish that this year. You mentioned some of the fitting trips already, but I think the more I can make Ping's fitting accessible to other people, that's a huge success for me. Um, Maybe this year, it might be next year. I'm hoping to get over to Ping Europe and see some maybe adaptive golf over there as well, and work with our team there. They already do, some great adaptive fittings, but just kind of growing the awareness as well. I still think there's some work to do over here, stateside, but Ping is a global leader, and that's a goal for me too, is to make Ping a global leader in adaptive golf as well.
That's great. As we wind down our discussion, I know you travel a lot, like you talked about, but you see a lot of golfers and folks working in the golf industry. So you see kind of all sides of the
Yeah.
coin. So what areas do you think the industry is doing really well in related to adaptive golf? And are there any observations you've made that you think, okay, there's an improvement opportunity there, for the industry as a whole and the way
Yeah.
that we draw more adaptive golfers into the game?
Yeah, hopefully my answer doesn't get me in trouble with anybody, but, no, I mean, I think, in my last couple years of experience, I think we are doing well, growing adaptive golf and the accessibility, but I don't think it's, where it needs to be at yet, and I think you and I would agree on that. It's cool to see kind of the tidal wave of growth and more people playing golf. The adaptive community, I think, is very tight-knit, so the word of mouth does really well, but I'm hoping I can see more of, these bigger organizations and companies and, manufacturers get in, invest a little more in the adaptive space. I think, the more that grows, the more excited I am, the busier I'll be. And it just really shows that what we're doing is paying off. But I think there's some work to do in that accessibility space as well. Seated golfers, I know it's tough each tournament, trying to get a cart and things like that. So if there's a way to kind of, get those more accessible, I think that's, a big deal as well. Getting carts more nationwide. Um, and, maybe that is, you know, uh, the bigger cart manufacturers, not necessarily specialty carts, but getting those adopted into everyday fleets at courses. You see the motorcycle carts and surfboard carts and stuff have become a really cool thing. Um, I'm sure some people, the single and a threesome that doesn't know the other two, give them the single, give them a solo rider, let them ride around, and it's getting used a lot. I remember a course I was at, out here at Auction, we had a solo rider at our cart, and who I now know really well, Larry Solano, would come out and play all the time. And I'm like, do we need to help this guy? And you watch Larry get in the cart all by himself, and when he swings, you think he's going to fall out. Um, but it was, that cart really, and I know from firsthand experience on the green grass, like that cart didn't get used a lot. But now I know what I know. If I was in that position again, I'd be using it for every single out there because it works really well. It holds your clubs. It does its job, and probably through COVID, it probably would have got used quite a bit.
Yeah.
But so I think it's just one of those things. That's one example, but I think as we see the growth of the game, accessibility, and the competition. Um, I think there's a lot of different avenues, but I think it's improving the accessibility. I think, we're all working really hard, but I think it's making it a little bit easier for adaptive golfers to get out there and play.
Yeah, well said. And you didn't intend to do this, but you gave me an opportunity to do a real quick plug, and I will. We just relaunched our adaptive golf car facility and program database. We've had a database for a long time.
Awesome.
We've got over 500 listings right now. It's freely available
Great.
to the public. Certainly, as the fitters at the PGA Tour Superstores or your ping fitters around the country, we would love for them to get their information on there to say, hey, we do this kind of instruction
Yeah.
or fitting. Because the real challenge, I think, is just the adaptive golfers just don't. It's a big country, and sometimes they don't know where to go, or they don't know where to go to find out. And so there's a major opportunity to kind of grow the information about what's out there, and adaptive golf cars is one of that. Listen, we recognize as an industry, that the adaptive golf cars are expensive and they're tough to get out on a lot of courses as far as purchasing them right now. But it's
Yeah.
slowly moving in the right direction. Courses are starting to share assets and things like that. But it's okay to let people know you don't have one yet, that you might be working on it,
Yeah.
because you might have an adaptive golfer traveling through the area who's looking for a place to play. And if they put in your zip code, what course around
Yeah.
there might have one? So just
Yeah.
helping that aspect of it, the communication aspect of it, facilitates play so amazingly. So we're excited about what that platform can do. But the reality is the database is only going to ever be as good as the programs and facilities that want to put their information in there, so that the golfers that need some additional access requirements, whether that's equipment
Yeah.
or access closer to greens, the more they know before they show up to your property, the better the experience is going to be for everybody, the golfer, the
Yeah.
pros, the staff, and everything. So you hit the nail on the head there with where I think a lot of our focus is. And well, listen, I'm really appreciative of your time today because clearly you don't have much of it besides what you're doing. And I envy you for that, and I don't envy you for that. So I'd love to be in a place where I could get my hands on that many golf clubs a day, but I probably wouldn't get
Yeah.
much work done that I can see in an image that our audience is not going to be able to see when they listen to this on
Yeah.
the. So, just any last comments, closing comments, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you, having me on here. I love listening to Anna's, interview as well. Anna's a great, honestly, pioneer in what we have going on right now as well in the adaptive space. So I'm grateful for yourself and having me on, and the future guests as well, because I think educating people is one thing, making it accessible is another. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to help people, and enjoy what we do on a daily basis. So, I'm excited for the growth of, what adaptive golf looks like, especially in 2025. I think there's going to be some really cool things happening. But I hope more people get involved too, right? For me, it was one story and seeing a couple people hit golf balls. I think that's the biggest thing. If, people out there, if you have the chance to go visit an adaptive tournament, or, just Google it. There's a lot of stuff on there as well. It's pretty eye opening, and pretty cool to see what some of these golfers can do.
Well, those are some awesome words to finish this interview with, and I'm going to make no effort to go beyond that except to say thank you very much for being with us today, Bryan, and we're going to be looking forward to connecting with you soon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Hopefully I get to be on episode 50.
Thanks very much.
See ya.